What I'd like to do in this little video is to walk you through my normal workflow. I have a photograph open in Adobe Photoshop 2021. This was taken in manual mode on my camera. The shutter speed was 1/100, the aperture was 4.5, and the ISO was 100. Now as you look at this picture, there's a fair amount that needs to be done to it, but it's really not going to take a whole lot. The first thing that I would do is to bring the picture into Camera Raw. To do that, I select Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and that brings up the Camera Raw interface. Now, notice that it tells what the ISO was. This is the lens, 24 millimeters, the aperture, and the shutter speed. Now, before talking about the specifics, over on the top right and going down, you have some different icons. This first icon with the 3 horizontal lines and I guess a little circle and alternating at the end puts you in the basic mode, which is generally where you want to be. Notice that it says basic here. Below that is a healing brush, which I never use, another brush, which I never use, a gradient filter, which I don't use. The radial filter I do use, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. The red eye filter I don't use, and the preset filter, which I do. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So let me go back to the basic mode, and again, this is what the Camera Raw will look like when the photograph is opened. Now over on the right at the top is the histogram, and I'll deal with that in just a minute. But the first thing that I want to do is to apply that preset. Now in terms of the presets, if you have loaded a preset into Lightroom, it should automatically be loaded into Camera Raw. So I'm going to select the preset icon, pretty bright and colorful, select that, and then go back to the basic window. So all of those different presets have been included. The next thing that I would want to do here is to adjust the white balance. And if you notice with this histogram, at the top right there's this little cloud-like thing that's black. I want to click somewhere in that histogram and I want to drag it to the right until the little cloud thing turns to white. And notice as I've done that how much the picture brightened up. Now one thing you might be interested in doing is comparing a before and after. Down at the bottom on the right, right before you see all of the stuff in the basic panel, this little thing that looks, I guess it looks kind of like an open book. If I select that, it will give me the before, it'll give me the after. If I want them side by side, I can select the icon just to the left of that little book, and it'll give me the before and the after. So it'll give me an indication of how much the editing has occurred. So I'm through, at least for the moment, with Camera Raw. I'm going to select OK, and that brings up the adjusted photograph in Photoshop. Now at this point there are maybe three or four things that I want to do. One, I want to get rid of this mess over on the left and over on the right. I want to crop the picture and straighten it up a little bit. And I want to check the white balance and maybe brighten the picture a little bit. So the first thing that I would do is I would crop it. I'm going to select the crop tool over on the left. Now when I'm doing this for the blog, the dimensions that I always use are 1200 by 1600 pixels with a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. If I'm doing it for the newspaper, then I use 2250 by 3000 and 300 pixels per inch. Let me go back to the 1200 by 1600. Now I've got the crop tool selected. If I go to the outside a little up and down kind of squishy arrow appears. And if I click anywhere on the outside, I can rotate the picture to the left. I can rotate it to the right. And basically what here I'm trying to do is to straighten up that the little pail that has the tortilla chips in it. Let me move it down just a little bit, and let me bring it in just a little bit on the left. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to select the check mark, and let me increase the size. To do that, I select Command and plus. Now at this point, there are three things that I want to get rid of. Over on the left-hand side, I want to get rid of this here. I want to get rid of these creases in the red, and I definitely want to get rid of this mess over on the right-hand side. So to do that, I'm going to use the spot healing brush, which is right here, spot healing brush tool. I use that all the time. Once I've selected it, up at the top, I can change the size of the circle, and let me move it down a little bit for what I'm going to do on the left. And basically it's just you try it, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. So I'm going to click up above where I want to clear things out, and I'm just going to drag that. And that looks pretty good. Let me play a little bit more. Yeah, there. Okay, that looks good. I want to get rid of these creases, so I'm going to click at the top and drag it down. Click at the top, drag it down, click at the top, drag it down. Actually, let me get rid of this one also. Now the big one is all of this space over on the right-hand side. So to do that, I'm going to increase the size of the brush. And again, you just play around with it. And I'm just going to start coloring it and see what happens. Okay, sometimes it'll put extraneous stuff in there. Not a problem, you just go over that. And I want to get rid of this down here. There you go, and get rid of the edge of the table. And let me clean up this a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The next thing that I would do is I want to check the levels. And I'm not sure what the levels means. I think it has to do with the lightness and the darkness. To do that, I select Image, Adjustment, Levels, and that brings up a histogram. Over on the left-hand side, if I drag it, it'll make the picture darker. On the right-hand side, if I drag it to the left, it'll make the picture lighter. And if I drag the item in the center to the right, it'll make it darker, it'll make it lighter. If I drag it the other way. I can do auto. I can actually move these arrows, or I can just do the little eyedropper. The one on the right hand side controls the white balance. The one on the left hand side controls the darkness or the black, and the one in the middle, I'm not sure what that does. So let me select the one on the right and just click somewhere that's white, and there we go. And that lightened it a little bit more. So let me say OK. Now the one thing that I'll generally do, and this requires going back to Camera Raw, is lightening up the background a little bit. So I'm going to go back to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and I'm going to select the Radial Filter. And I can change things. The feathering, I'm not sure what that means. The exposure, let me do it down just a little bit. Anyway, I can change all that stuff. And again, this is just experimenting, but generally I'll click at the top left and just draw it. And on the outside, let me do it down just a little bit. And then let me pull this down. There. So, okay. So the final thing that I'll often do is to change the picture so that the colors sort of pop out a little bit more. To do that, I'm going to select Layer, Duplicate Layer, and it's called Background Layer, which is okay. And when I do that, in the Layers panel over on, at least on my computer on the right-hand side, a window will pop up. I'm going to select the drop-down menu for Normal and go down to Soft Light, and that brightens it a lot, probably too much. And then the drop-down arrow for Opacity, and I'm going to move that. Generally, I'll put the opacity somewhere between 30 and 40. So let me click on the little eye, and this is now, this is before, this is after. So it doesn't do a lot, but it just gives a little bit of pop to the picture. So there you have it. That's generally what I do. I hope it hasn't been too overwhelming for you. If you have any questions at all, let me know. And just remember that anything you can do in Lightroom, you can do in Photoshop, but so much more. So if you're going to make the effort to learn one of them, it would be my recommendation to learn Photoshop.